Well, back to our top story now here on RT. As the battle in Syria continues, the war has moved online. For more on how online campaigns might influence events in Syria, I'm now joined live by David Keyes, who's Executive Director of the Advancing Human Rights Web Project, an organisation that also gave briefings on Syria to Hillary Clinton and the National Security Council. Well, we'll talk about that in just a moment, but first, you yourself, you've been caught up in the middle of an online campaign surrounding events in Syria, accused of being a Mossad agent, I understand, training the rebels. Briefly tell us about that, but also tell us how big a role you think social media is playing in this uprising in Syria.
Sure. Well, first of all, thanks for having me on the program. Following an article I wrote in the Washington Post, headlines in Syrian, Saudi, and Israeli newspapers accused me of being a senior Mossad spy. If I am a spy, I'm doing a pretty terrible job at keeping it so. I don't remember James Bond doing many daytime TV shows. So those who are parroting this accusation won't believe my denial or my affirmation. What I am doing is everything I can to make sure the voices of democratic dissidents are heard in the West, and that policymakers and press understand just how brutal the regime of Bashar al-Assad is. Of course, it is a typical ploy of dictatorships throughout the world to accuse foreign agents of undermining stability. This was done by Japan in the 30s. If you read Toshikazu Kaze, advisor to Foreign Minister Shigemitsu, if you look at what Muammar Gaddafi did and Bashar al-Assad, it's a standard trope, and frankly, it's entertaining above all else.
All right, but clearly social media is playing a role in the Syrian uprising by all accounts, and who could be behind these? You've already suggested that these fabrications are being made by somebody who probably has other interests and not actually involved there in Syria.
Sure. Well, of course, social media is giving a platform to those who otherwise can't have their voice heard to express their desires for freedom and just how important it is to topple and remove the dictatorship of Bashar al-Assad, as now deaths are approaching 10,000 people. And during the time of the Soviet Union, there wasn't an electronic medium to get your voice heard. There was underground samizdat. Nowadays, people have a lot more potential power to make known the violations of human rights committed by dictatorships throughout the Middle East.
Now, your organisation briefed Hillary Clinton on the matters concerning Syria. What did you tell her?
Well, we brought the voices of dissidents on the ground in Syria who we're in touch with on a daily basis, and during briefings with Secretary Clinton and the National Security Council, we made sure that their voices were heard, their pleas at times for intervention, but mostly to make known their plight, to make it known to the world just how brutal Bashar al-Assad is, the sort of sniping at civilians, the travesties and the human rights violations. So we brought their voices to some of the most powerful people in the Western world, and we hope that powers, including Russia and China, which unfortunately have been very bad on the issue of Syria, which have been giving sanction and protection to the al-Assad dictatorship, change their tune and understand that the future is with the people of Syria and not with this brutal dictatorship of Bashar al-Assad.
And briefly, do you have hope that Kofi Annan could actually get some sort of mediation underway, just briefly, on his visit this weekend?
I don't have much hope, and that's the message of most of the dissidents with whom I speak. I believe that the West and the United Nations and Russia should adhere to the principle of Andrei Sakharov and Natan Sharansky, that a nation should be trusted only as much as they trust their own people. And as we've seen with the arrests of Mazen Darwish and many other human rights activists just in the last few days and months, the dictatorship of al-Assad is a regime which we cannot trust at all. And mediation is not the answer. The removal of this brutal dictator is.
Okay, thanks very much indeed. David Keyes, Executive Director of the Advancing Human Rights